And what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we'll be talking about AMD versus Intel. Which one should you choose and which one is most likely best for your situation and what you're going to be using it for. Now, to give you guys a little background on the story, Ryzen wasn't the best. Intel was the supreme reigning from when I was younger, actually, and the only CPU I really knew that was on the market. Ryzen was there, AMD was there, but they weren't as good as Intel until Ryzen 1st gen came out. And when Ryzen 2nd gen came out, it disrupted the market so bad because AMD started competing with cores and threads and just everything, and they started beating Intel and multi-threading, and they're on 7nm process and all that. But to give you a basic rundown, if you're a gamer and you're just truly gaming on the PC, I would definitely prefer you to be on an Intel system, because Intel systems are on a monolithic die, which means lower latency. Lower latency means faster clock speeds. So I believe Intel has now reached to 5.3 gigahertz, but that's only on, I think, a couple of cores you can reach it. So most likely you can run Intel on all cores 5.0 gigahertz, like easily, probably, on their highest flagship model i9. But if you're doing more of streaming or multi-threading tasks that require rendering, like YouTube, or just rendering 4K high quality videos, then you want the muscle, then you need a Ryzen processor, because these things have 12 cores, 24 threads. The highest one's the 3950X, I believe. I think that one actually has 16 cores, 32 threads, my bad. And that thing's a beast. But unfortunately, Ryzen is good for gaming as well, don't get me wrong, but they're not up to Intel yet. They're still getting there. Because what AMD uses to make their processor cheaper is they use multiple dies. And what I mean by multiple dies is they use multiple chiplets that are bin to a certain gigahertz and clock speed for the cores and threads. So imagine I had like 3, these games are a CPU chip, like a die. So Intel uses one chip that not only has the GPU, but also all the program instructions on one single die, and they bin it to the silicon to 5.3 gigahertz or however they can, and they do cut down versions after that. AMD, depending on the CPU, they use multiple dies. So what that means is there's 2 dies, like on this Ryzen 5 3600, and they communicate with each other. So let's say the Ryzen 5 3600 has 6 cores, there's going to be 3 cores on CCX 0, I believe that's what I call it, and then CCX 1, that's what they call it. And then there's the CCX die, which they call the whole thing. And what this does is it not only makes the process of selling the CPU cheaper, they also have this thing called the Infinity Fabric, which they use to communicate between the dies. Now this is why they can't reach certain clock speeds, because the latency between this is still pretty high compared to a monolithic die. Now that's why the highest CPU currently for Ryzen that can hit is 4.7, and I believe overclocking doesn't really get you anywhere but maybe 4.8. And I believe 4th gen Ryzen will be using a monolithic die rather than a multi-chiplet design like it is for 3rd gen. And what this does is basically multi-threaded task is what AMD has been out after for like so long. They're amazing at it. Anything Ryzen based, it's great at multi-threaded tasks. Intel, it's going to be gaming, just gaming. And the battle between these two CPUs have been going on for now like 4 years now, with the introduction of Ryzen, obviously. And has shaken up the market quite a bit. As we know today, many people are going with Ryzen because of the higher threads, higher core count, and just overall better performance in multi-threading and not streaming, because a lot of people are doing that now. But if you are really just gaming and not doing anything, and this is And we know that Intel's a solid CPU. They always produce solid CPUs. If I put this in a motherboard, I know it will work. Because they have ironed this out to like the maximum potential it can be. Ryzen, on the other hand, has had BIOS issues in the past, and kind of like BIOS and driver updates that are very bad. They had constant updates for reliability as well. If I was recommending someone Ryzen, I need to make sure that they know how computers work as well. But if it's a user that just wants the computer to work and it will run this Intel CPU, I've had this for like 4 years and it works. I think I had my first system was a Core 2 Duo. I think I had like 2 cores and 2 threads, and it was horrible. Then I upgraded to this one. This is alright, but this one, this is always better. And this battle's been going on, and Ryzen has taken the upper hand on Intel because Intel can't yield the better processing node. The processing node, when I say 14 nanometer and 7 nanometer, is the amount of transistors in the die. Because 14 nanometer, they can only fit so much, but 7 nanometer, they can fit like twice as many, or just a ridiculous amount of transistors in a smaller amount. And people have always clowned on Intel for this, because they've been using 14 nanometer for like, I don't know, 10 years? It's been a long time. And they're currently working on 10 nanometers, but when they announced that 10 nanometer had been cancelled, or not cancelled, but delayed again, this like moved the market share even more to AMD, because AMD was already going to like 5 nanometer by the time Intel will probably reach 10 nanometer or 7 nanometer. And Intel needs to probably start going with a third-party manufacturer like TSMC, because they can make 7 nanometer. But on to the video anyway. If you're more of a streamer, gamer, you want that rendering a 4K video, then Ryzen is the choice for you. Okay? If you can deal with some of the stuff, that's great features. PCI Gen 4.0 is one of them as well. That says on the box for a 3rd gen. And Intel is gaming. It's a solid core, and I believe Intel's 10th gen has a hyper-threading, that's hyper-threading on the full stack of 10th gen, which they haven't done before. And they've only reserved for like the i9s, and that's it. In the highest standard ones. But since Ryzen competition always proves the best for the consumer. And also stay tuned. I believe October 8th is when Ryzen 4th gen releases, and then we'll get a lot of drama going on in the CPU world. But hey, Intel's not a bad company. They just had like a very bad couple of years on the CPU market. But it always depends on the situation of these two CPUs. Okay. If you're like someone like needs to be bursty gaming workloads, all of that, then Intel's for you. Team Blue. There's always gonna be fanboys on your side, but you must find that middle ground and like which one's gonna prove the most beneficial for you and yourself as a consumer. And I also like to point out that this is an older generation like i3. I'll be doing another video on this later. AMD and Intel both have come a long way. Competition is always proven in the market that competition is key. It's better for the consumer as well, because since both companies are fighting each other, it just produces lower prices on CPUs as well. And I think AMD is now trying to go after Nvidia now for the RTX 3000 series, which I'll be doing a talking head video also on that later on down the line. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Comment down in the comments like what other video ideas you want me to do. Anyway, hope you guys have a great day. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Anyway, peace out.